Hello and welcome to Tilling It Like It Is, UGA Extensions, and Southeast Georgia's newest source for local, unbiased, research-based information about Georgia's #1 industry. We are, again, coming to you from Midville, Georgia. If you're new to the pod, my name is Blake Carter. I'm the Effingham County Ag and Natural Resources Agent. And with me is my co-host, Savannah Tanner, who is in A-MAIZE-ING County. And we're thinking about this time of year. This is about the time when corn harvest is going on. Some have already almost finished, possibly, and some of them are in the middle of it. I saw them driving down the road earlier today. Um, I was behind some of the tractors going to the next field, so it's in full swing. And with that, there comes some discussion about some of the grain bins and things like that. So we're going to be talking about that today. And we got a special guest, a real special guest with us today. I'm real excited because he is about. If y'all have never met this guest of ours, you're about to get really acquainted with one of the gems of the Southeast District. If I had to put a name with it, Mr. Rocky Tanner is with us from Johnson County and Washington County. You do both, right?
I do.
So he's going to be with us today talking about that, and I cannot wait. Now, I will say, go on record and say this could be, if this is not for your children, we don't know what's going to happen.
I'm going to be on my best behavior.
All right. Well, just to let y'all know, parents listen to it first, then screen it, and then let your kids listen. All right. But Rocky, no, I'm just kidding. Rocky's going to give us some really good stuff, and he's one of my favorite people to talk to. So, but before we get to Rocky, for the main attraction, you do still have to deal with me and Savannah talking to y'all. And so we normally do what's going on and row by row reports separately. But this time we're doing something a little bit different. We're actually going to combine them because this topic that we kind of decided to just cover today is something that kind of goes for both. It's for people that aren't farmers and for farmers as well, because I think it's very important for us to be aware. We had something that happened in our county a year ago that was not very good because of this topic, some of the stuff that happened. So I'm going to let Savannah kind of start it. Savannah, so if you want to, what's growing on that we're talking about today?
So we're going to talk about highway safety. We've got a lot that, if it's not already going on, it will be very shortly. We're going to be moving harvesting equipment, large equipment from field to field. We're going to be, moving peanut wagons. We're going to be moving cotton modules, things like that very quickly. If we haven't already started moving some, and I'm a statistics / fun fact guru. I love this kind of stuff, and I love being able to put a number with it. Transportation accidents with farm equipment cause 40% of ag-related deaths of children under 15. Anyone 13 or older in the state of Georgia can legally operate a tractor during agricultural operations in the state of Georgia. And I very vividly remember a situation with my baby brother. If he's listening to this, he's going to be mad because we call him Hunter Bug, and that is his name. And he is 20 now, and he hates Hunter Bug. But I very vividly remember.
So say it 3 or 4 more times.
Tell him one more time. What was it? Hunter Bug?
Hunter Bug.
Bug, man.
I very vividly remember when he was about 14 or 15, him driving our tractor with hauling hay with it down the highway. We had our slow moving vehicle sign on. He had his flashers on, and a vehicle went to go around him in a curve in a no passing zone and ran him completely off the road. Fortunately, he was not hurt. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that do get hurt. That same year, we had a situation down in southwest Georgia. Fortunately, the child was not hurt, but the tractor was completely demolished when somebody rear-ended him. In Emanuel County, we've had numerous cow trailer accidents where people are not paying attention and they rear end. And, we think about tractors being very sustainable, heavy duty. They don't hold up very well to transportation accidents. on top of 40% of the ag-related deaths of children under 15, transportation accidents involving tractors cause nearly half of all ag-related deaths each year in the United States. That's a substantial amount. And as of 2022, I haven't pulled the most recent statistic, but as of 2022, there was over 2,300 road crashes involving farm equipment between the years of 2016 and 2022. That resulted in 866 injuries and 47 deaths. It's absolutely heartbreaking because a farmer, in my mind, especially where I'm from, where I am at, is a farmer depicts a family.
That's right.
A lot of times. And so when these guys are literally just doing their job, getting from one place to another, that's feeding and clothing and providing fiber for you, just doing their job, and they're getting killed because people are not paying attention on the road.
And I want to say too, it's not just tractors too. It's also tractor trailers. It's semi trucks. You know, we're going to be hauling cotton too, but not just us. It's also the semi truck drivers outside of our of farming and agriculture. And I there's been so many times, you know, I think big trucks, people that drive big trucks get such a bad reputation, or they get viewed as like the nuisance on the road when you're in a hurry and you're always behind a semi truck or whatever the case. Now, I'm not saying there's times when semi trucks probably pull out when they should not pull out at all, or try to fit themselves in a space in a short amount of time and they should not do it. But there, more times than not, they are the larger vehicle, and we need to think about that and be respectful. They do have the right of way.
Well, and in agriculture, now this is different from commercial hauling, but in agriculture, they can haul 90,000 pounds.
Yeah.
When they're loaded, and trying to slow down 90,000 pounds is not easy.
No.
You're much easier and quicker on your brakes in a pickup truck or an SUV than you are slowing down 90,000 pounds. And kind of talking about that, most tractors are traveling less than 25 miles an hour.
Right.
Most of them are closer to 17, 18. And to kind of put in another fun fact, a car that's traveling 55 miles an hour, and how many people are really only traveling 55 miles an hour?
Yeah.
Very few.
Right.
Can close a 300-foot gap, which is the length of a football field, in 4 seconds.
Yep.
And so if you're not paying attention, you're on your phone, you're looking. I'm bad about looking at cows or fields through the window.
Please don't say you've been looking on your phone, because we do not drive with our phones in our hands. Throwing that out there.
But you think about 4 seconds, you have to have an excellent set of brakes to close that gap.
Yeah. But also a reaction time, and I think that's the other thing too. I mean, just being able to be that quick. We don't need to rely on the fact that we can be that quick and react.
That's right, because we can't. And unfortunately, you know, when you're talking about 866 injuries and 47 deaths in 6 years just in the state of Georgia, that's a lot.
That is a lot, yeah.
And it's heartbreaking. 2,300 road crashes involving farm equipment. We've quit paying attention to the road. So let's talk about some things that we need to be mindful of and remember, especially as our equipment's going to be on the road. You know, and it's not just our row crop producers. You know, we've got final hay cuttings coming up. We're fitting to start planting winter grazing. We're going to be hauling hay down the road. You've got this. Anything in agriculture, we're about to be on those roads.
Well, just the road detail crews, you know, with the tractors going through.
Well,
you know?
You're right, and Department of Transportation, and you know, people mowing on the sides of the roads and things. But here's some things to remember. Again, most tractors travel less than 25 miles an hour. Most of them are going to be at that 15, 16, 17 mile an hour speed. So keep that in mind. If you see one coming up, go ahead and start slowing down. There's nothing that scares me more than being in Atlanta and you're driving 55 and all of a sudden you're driving 25. That gives me heart palpitations, because you have to hit those You have to hit those brakes quickly. Same concept. Slow down, pay attention, be looking much further than just your immediate in front of you. Remember that farm implements swing. So don't try to see them starting to turn. Don't go around them until they have fully made that turn and continued on their way, because those implements are going to swing wide. We had a situation in Evans County when I worked down there, and I actually think it was in Tattnall County, and that happened. They went to go around them while they were trying to turn, and they plowed into the back of it. Now, fortunately, everything was fine as far as people go, but the equipment and the vehicle actually had some pretty significant damage to it. Do not pass if you are in a designated no passing zone. I see that all the time. I have a picture on the highway where there is a car that's about to come out in the road in front of us, and you have 3 cars passing a tractor on a bridge in a no passing zone.
Yep.
Do not pass within 100 feet of any intersection or bridge. That goes for the same thing. They may not see you. A lot of times we're going to be moving equipment. The sun may be in your eyes, something of that nature. Just try to be patient. Even if you have to slow down to 20 miles an hour to follow that tractor for 2 miles, it's only going to take 6 minutes of your time, which is equivalent at 2 stoplights. So, I am notoriously late. That's not a joke, but it's always my own fault. Don't be mad at anybody else because you didn't prepare adequately for your time.
That's what I was going to say. That's I'm thinking about my county. We're like I've said several times, we are urbanizing so fast on part of the county, and people are moving into Effingham that have never been around agriculture. So so we have this thing, we have these two dynamics, two worlds clashing, where you have the ag side and the urbanization heavy urban side kind of meeting together. And what happens is people aren't familiar with how to interact, and they're also expecting to interact and deal with the road situations the same way they would without a tractor, just regular cars and things like that. And that's not the case. And we've had several people get run off the road or even fatalities happen within the last year. I know 2 of them in Effingham alone that were tractor related in some sort of capacity. But the thing is too, when it comes to these guys and you're running late, you might, there's so many times people give the one finger salute to farmers. And it's sad. It's really sad because they're late or they're angry or whatever the case, or they're wanting them to pull over and let them go around. Farmers will do that. I will tell you that right now. When there's a chance and they will do that.
When they can.
And that's where I'm getting at. Yeah.
You're talking about 6-row, 12-row equipment.
That's right.
We do take up a lot of room, and
that's right.
But we do not want to be on that road any more than you want us on that road.
That's exactly right.
We are trying to get where we are going to do what we need to do and get off of it because we do know the dangers of it. That being said, there are some things that our farmers can do to assist in the traffic accident situation. And one of those is, if you get an opportunity to pull off the road, let them by. Escorts, and we emphasize that a lot on our farm, is having a pickup truck behind them with the flashers on, with slow moving vehicle signs. If you don't have those on the tractors, they're pretty cheap and you need them. In fact, I know our young farmer advisor in Emmanuel County is actually working on a grant to provide some of our Emmanuel County producers with slow moving vehicle signs. And so they're $6-8 at Tractor Supply. When it comes to insurance, in the event that you are in an accident, if you don't have one, you're going to wish you had one. And $6 or $8 can absolutely save you money in relevance to an accident, but could potentially save your life as well. The other thing, Rocky was kind of talking about this earlier when we were kind of discussing the podcast, is lights.
Yes.
There's a lot of really good magnetic movable lights, keeping those flashers on, getting people's attention to let them know, hey, I'm slow. I'm not going to be driving 55 like you are. You need to be paying attention to those. And our farmers can do that. Is it aggravating? Sure. We're in a hurry just like everybody else. We've gotten behind, or maybe we've got a lot going on and we're really just ready to do it. But taking that 30 seconds to put those magnetic lights on there and get them rigged up, we're moving from one area to the other. It is so important. That being said, be safe out there. Keep our farmers and your family safe by slowing down and paying attention. And Blake's got a little something else on the motor vehicle.
Before we switch gears, I did want to just say one more thing, and you mentioned to it earlier about just the convoy or having that escort. Being an ag agent, we'll be out in fields when farmers are out there and we're looking at things. I mean, there's been several times I've been that escort. The farmer's been like, hey, would you follow me to the field or to my next field? And I think that's they're trying to be mindful of that as well. The other thing is when you're passing, you mentioned about passing and no passing zones and things like that, but also, as even this morning, I was behind 3 tractors back to back to back, but you can't really see them. They're a little spaced out, but they were all going to the same field. They were going for harvesting corn. You might not see 3 tractors. You might only see that one that you're behind. And if that's the case, you go around to go pass them. Now you're trying to pass 3 different tractors before a car, if it's coming, is coming to you.
The other thing is, even a lot of times on the tractors, they can't see what's behind them either.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So
even with mirrors and stuff that they're equipped with, it's really kind of hard to see behind the implement.
Yes.
A baler or
trying to do that turn. I think about that turn and you passing on a turn. I think that's something that, because they can't see and they'll go into turn, they have to make that wide turn and you're flying up to try to pass. Just be very cautious. And like I said, because farmers are also people too that are driving it. So you're not only risking your life, their lives are at stake. Just be mindful of that. Same way with semi trucks. Just be very cautious on the road. I know we're going to be lots of travel going forward and lots of movement with semis or farming equipment these upcoming months. So just be mindful of that.
Well, and sometimes we forget about the trailer side of things, but we've got a lot of peanut wagons that are going to be moving too, and those are very loaded down as well, and they're going to be moving slow. They don't haul worth a darn anyway.
Nope.
And so our farmers in pickup trucks are going to have to be slower moving those peanut wagons, and we've got hopper bottoms, and just because you're going somewhere and you're going straight doesn't mean that hopper bottom's not fitting to turn into the field right here. Which kind of brings us into our hopper bottoms. We're predominantly are going to be doing corn and beans, and so Rocky's going to talk with us a little bit about grain bins. Despite common belief, Rocky and I are not related, and he is certainly not my father.
He's not your dad or uncle?
I've known him most of my life, but we are not related.
Is he your twin?
Sure, he can be my twin, but we are from the same area.
We branch kin.
Yes, branch kin, which means we're probably kin somewhere down the line, but it's not even remotely close. But that being
the Tanners and the Carters on there.
That's right. But that being said, Rocky does a lot of work with corn and soybeans in his area. He's got a lot of grain bins. In Johnson and Washington County, got a lot of small grain producers up there. So Rocky, how should producers prepare their grain bins prior to the harvest season, which we're getting kind of late on your corn, but we are going to be going into corn and beans, and even we've got some wheat that we'll be planting shortly that could go into these bins as well.
Well, all right. So thank y'all for having me. So I will preface this by saying, yes, our corn harvest is almost done. I had a producer yesterday tell me that they cut 26 hopper bottoms of corn yesterday, and they will be through this week with roughly 2,000 acres. And so years ago, years ago, every farm, I tell people this, every farm had a little grain bin or two,
Right.
had a few hogs and had a few head of cows, and it didn't matter what you did, if you grew corn, soybeans, cotton, whatever, everybody had some kind of grain bin. Well, then we kind of got away from that for a few years, and it's like we were cotton and peanuts, and then soybeans had kind of went away, and corn was just kind of wasn't kind of I don't know, maybe like I wouldn't have considered corn 15 years ago a major crop around our area. However, kind of with the decline of cotton, comes back, and then we have a little localized niche market for non-GMO corn and soybeans. Well, and it's really kind of woke up the grain producer. Between Johnson and Washington County, we actually have, I called around to a few farmers that I know that have just put up bins or bought facilities in the last, say, 5 years. And there's about 2.5 million bushel capacity of storage for grain in Washington and Johnson County. And that's mostly just farmer owned stuff. The question was, I chased a rabbit.
No, you fine.
So the question was, how do we get started?
That's right. Yep.
So Dr. Michael Taves come and did a meeting for us a couple weeks ago back on grain bin management. It might have been about 3 weeks ago, but anyway, so one of the most important things is start clean. And this means start with a bin that's clean. And when I mean clean, I'm not talking about eat off the floor in it, but clean as to everything is swept and vacuumed out. Bins have things like some of them have a false floor, like a perforated floor that for the air to circulate up through. Even as much as going down up under those and taking that floor out, maybe every now and then, and or either fumigating it. And there is methods for fumigating to kill any kind of pests that are in that little gap between the floor and the actual concrete that the grain bin's on. But starting clean is I tell you, not to throw this off on anybody else, but I'll tell you, I wanted to read what Dr. Michael Taves, he sent me in an email a few weeks ago when I was asking him about this, and he said successful grain storage in Georgia requires starting clean, storing grain at the appropriate storage moisture content, aeration, and the use of insecticides for long-term storage. But he sent me a 3-page email, and he kept on about bringing up, start clean your augers out, your equipment that you're hauling the beans or corn or whatever. And I know a while ago Savannah mentioned about peanut wagons, and we get the peanut industry itself gets a lot of pressure to keep contamination down, to keep grains out of peanuts. And I know a lot of people, maybe they put a little corn on a peanut wagon or, for storing to, Lord knows if they're going to feed a deer. But anyway,
That's right.
But keeping your augers, equipment, combines, all of that goes into it. But mainly starting clean and keeping it sealed, knowing your moisture, all of those things, knowing a way to accurately read moisture, that's a real good start.
Well, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit, and so I was gonna ask a certain thing about the USDA stuff, but we'll wait to that one to the end because I think you're touching on a piece. So when you're talking about protecting that crop once it's out of that field, what are some of the tips and tricks that you would recommend specifically for doing that?
Okay, so one of the things that that is stressed is harvesting the crop on time. And this may sound like, why is that important? But so harvesting the corn before it's went into a deteriorating state. that I don't know if I said deteriorating right. That sounds like it's got nine syllables. But anyway, so but harvesting, say corn for instance, once that corn gets dry and that shuck starts to peel back on the plant, whether it's from some insect damage or whether it's from wind or blown down or corn or whatever, but starting with a crop that's that is harvested timely,
Yep.
keeps it from getting other contaminants. A lot of times we are our own worst enemies with, we're behind, we're waiting, we can't get to the field to harvest, and then the next thing you know, um, it should have been harvested last week. But yes, starting, getting a good start, using equipment that is properly calibrated, knowing how stuff works.
One thing that I've noticed in the last couple of years, of course, I don't have a whole lot of corn experience or a lot of corn in Emmanuel County for that matter, is a lot of these producers seem to be starting their harvesting process at a little higher moisture. And I do want to point out that a lot of times these guys, so when I worked at Roach Farm and Garden back when I was in college, we used to have producers actually bring some that they've just hand shelled, brought to us, and we would actually check the moisture for. And I do want to point out that there are a lot of agents in our area that have moisture meters that they can actually check them for you in the field, if you call them. But how important is it to maintain that moisture before you ever get it out of the field?
Well, and I kind of went there a while ago and forgot where I was going. But so, like when I talked about years ago, people had a grain bin. Also, people hardly ever harvested until stuff was dry.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't harvest corn at 21, 22, 23% moisture because it cost so much. But they only had 25 acres of corn or 40 acres of corn. And we're talking about growers with thousands of acres, and they got to get over it in a matter of a couple of weeks. So yes, they start when the moisture is a little bit higher. Um, I'm sure there's some economics. I mean, I know there's economics behind what it costs to dry, but it getting the harvest out of the field and getting it with a good quality kernel, like for corn or beans or whatever, for the quality of the crop, it's okay to harvest early, and you're still coming out cheaper in the most times, even if you have to dry it. But having the moisture down to a certain amount, and again, I'm going to allude to what Dr. Taves said. He specifically told me that before you start putting grain in a bin, shell corn in a bin, he wants it around 15 before it goes in a bin. Now, then we say, okay, well, is 15 low enough? Well, yeah, if you got corn in the bin and it's going to be in there for 30 days, 15's probably enough. If you're going to hold that corn for 6 months or 8 months or till next spring or whatever, then we need to look at some getting it on down in the 14 range. There's also, that goes hand in hand with the moisture, is the humidity and just stirring air and the temperature of the grain. And one of the things I guess everybody assumes, a lot of people, not farmers, I guess they would be, but I used to think that a fan on a grain bin was a dryer, but it's not. I mean, a grain dryer and a ventilation fan are two different things.
Well, and a lot of times those high moistures encourage quicker insect development. So I know we didn't really talk about this prior to it, but what are some options on some insect management in some of these grain bins?
So I don't want to. I'm not going to try to name brands or trade names or nothing like that. I will just say there's products that you treat the bin with, like clean, like like spraying the clean bin down with products that are labeled for grain storage facilities. There's some of those that do and that's when I talked about that false floor and Dr. Taves, uh, I hate to keep going back to him, but I'm telling you, he's like a wealth of knowledge. He actually wrote the section in our pest management handbook on pest management in grain storage. And I've read more on it in the last week or two than I've ever known. But there are products that you can treat the bin with. There's also products that you treat on the grain as it's going up the auger to go in the bin. And he some of there's from what I gather, there's some cheaper ones, there's some mid-grade ones, and then there's some Cadillac models. And it's just like everything else. It depends on what is your goal. If I'm putting corn in the bin in August and I know that I want to protect that corn until next March, I might want to go ahead and go with the Cadillac. If I'm putting corn in there and I'm bagging it out or putting it out in trailers to sell to deer hunters and it's going to be gone by Thanksgiving, I may use something different. But there's products that you can treat the grain. He stressed go putting it in like at the beginning of the auger, like as it's going up, so it kind of distributes it. Your goal is to try to get as much the right amount, but get as many kernels of the grain treated as possible. Uh, Temperature. I know I mentioned it a while ago, but temperature is very important, and he we urge people with fans for ventilation. Well, you want to get that grain down as cool as you can. Uh, with us, we need we got super humidity, super hot weather when we're harvesting. We're unlike Iowa or Indiana where they pulling corn when they pull corn, it's already cold.
Yep. Yep.
Most people do not have a chiller. We do have one. I do have a producer in Washington County with a chiller. Now he has about 1.5 million bushel capacity, so it's a little bit different for him.
Yeah.
But uh, we want to make sure at night we're trying to get that grain down as cool as we can. Now, think kind of the rule of thumb is until you get your grain cooled down, your fan should be running if the outside temperature is 10 degrees cooler than the ambient grain temperature. So, in other words, at night when it's down in the 60s, if you got warm grain, you need to be pulling some air through it to cool it down, especially in August and September. I mean, it's 90 something degrees out here today. So, and then in the wintertime, we getting it down to chilled down to 40 would be our goal. I think as Dr. Taves said 40 now. It's a while before Georgia gets grain in a bin to 40 degrees.
If we ever do.
If we ever do, I was gonna say. Well, to kind of last thing we kind of want to touch on, another topic is having to do with the USDA programs or any kind of help or programs out there for farmers. Do you know of any that you can kind of speak on in that?
I do actually. So there's basically two type loans that are for farm storage facility loans. One of them's called a micro loan, which is generally for younger or maybe not first time borrowers, but first time or people that are young in their career and need a loan. And those micro loans are up to $50,000. I think they have a lower down payment requirement, like maybe 5%, whereas then there are other loans that are up to 500,000. Those bigger loans that aren't the micros end up, I think they usually require 15% down. Their financing is up to, I think Taylor was saying 10 to 12 years, and they're at good rates. if you need that stuff. But the main thing, and a lot of people don't. Now that bigger loan, a lot of the stuff that it requires the farmer to kind of not necessarily prove they need it, but if I go and I was looking for a $500,000 loan to put a grain bin in, they're going to put grain bins in or whatever. They're going to want to know, they're going to want to see, hey, what have I produced in the last few years, you know? And I think you got records that you had to provide them with on, 2 to 3 years of harvest. And
Well, and you also have to provide not necessarily a bank statement, but a bank stand. So you've got to have somebody from a bank verifying that you were capable of covering those loan payments and things like that. One thing I will say is we're talking about grain storage specifically, which is why we are talking about these loans, but those also cover things like hay
yes,
shelters
so this
and
is
things like that.
it was a blanket. It has a blanket name that's farm storage facility loan. So yes, grain bins are considered. Uh, I roll a little bit of hay. I was trying to find out about these storage sheds and loans, and they was like, well, what else can you put under them? And it's like,
Hey,
hay. That's it. You can't put cows, dogs, tractors, trailers, four-wheelers.
that's right.
So they do. I mean, I guess with a government backed loans like these USDA loans, I mean, they obviously uh, we want to be doing them for what they're intended on. But just the name of and the other thing is, uh, Taylor Outlaw actually spoke. She works with USDA out of Sandersville. She actually spoke at a meeting we had and gave this same little update. But a lot of times, even the equipment used, like grain trucks or gravity wagons or even handling equipment to get the product to the storage is sometimes covered under some of the things that are eligible. But on this list, it actually had um, storage storage facilities for wool, seed, cotton, hemp, grain, yogurt, eggs, butter, cheese, milk, and I thought was funny, maple sap. I don't know anybody that's in the harvest maple sap, but
Yeah, well, you say that about the hemp thing. That's funny. Tyler Harper mentioned they had some revisions to the hemp laws this past session, and he mentioned this the other day at Ag Issue Summit, and he's hoping that industry is kind of that the revisions are going to help that kind of come back a little bit more in Georgia. So that's perfect information there. I didn't realize about the hemp. That's interesting.
Well, I think we're running out of time.
Yeah, we are coming up on our time.
I'm not going to go through all of our upcoming events, but what I'm going to give you guys some homework if you're listening to this. We will post all of these extension upcoming events like the beef cattle retained ownership webinar, like the grain drill demo and wildlife food plot workshop, the citrus update, grassroots 365. All of this will be on our Facebook page and our blog. And so we will get those posted. So if you're not following us, go ahead and follow us and look up our blog on Facebook and the blog. It's all Tilling It Like It Is. So you can Google that and find us that way.
Rocky, before we sign off, you got another thing you want to?
One of the thing I want to make sure I hit on is safety.
Yes.
Electrical, making sure these fans and augers are properly wired and not trying. And the other thing, the use of some of these pesticides and fumigants, if you have to fumigate a bin, and having the proper PPE, personal protective equipment to use to have on hand to do that stuff. They need to be wary of that and
be careful.
Yeah, be careful. I mean, I think that's a good theme for this whole CAPS has been the safety, and being mindful of yourself and others.
Another thing I think of when it comes to grain bins, and it's because I've been there when I did work at Roach, is heat stress. When you get in those bins in August cleaning them out, you're looking at some of the upwards of 125, 130 degrees in there trying to clean those out. So being mindful of that, staying hydrated, keeping it ventilated while you're inside it, all of that kind of stuff.
And we have all kind of documents that we can provide people with on handling or storage and safety and ventilation and drying and several pages. We just kind of touched on the highlights, but
that's right. Yeah, there's several publications. If y'all are interested in more, and if you're also interested, if you got a specific question, reach out to any of us via our Facebook or our emails are all online. It's we're public service, so y'all can find us. It's not that hard. But we Rocky, we really do appreciate it. And you coming in and talking a little bit about grain bins and some of that the storage stuff. I think it's very valuable, and we appreciate you joining us today.
I appreciate it. Maybe I can come back again one day and talk about something else.
Hey, I know the host. We can pull some strings. We'll see what happens. But
he happens to be my father.
Or twin. If you look them up, they look similar ages. But we do thank y'all for joining us again for another episode of Telling It Like It Is. And until next time, keep telling it like it is.